Hello, and welcome to Quiet Nights, your gentle retreat into a world of calm and tranquility. Tonight, we invite you to unwind with a soothing story, crafted to ease your mind and guide you toward a restful night's sleep. But before we begin, take a deep, unhurried breath, and then another. Feel the weight of the day slowly melt away, like soft clouds drifting across the evening sky. Let go of any lingering thoughts, any tension that still clings to you. There's no rush, no expectations, only this quiet moment, just for you. As you listen, let the rhythm of the words lull you into a state of peaceful relaxation. Now close your eyes, settle in, and let the whispers of the night carry you away. Welcome to Quiet Nights. Within a snug cottage nestled in the village of Oak Haven, Lyra dwelled. It was a simple, single-room home shared with her parents, tucked away beside an ancient olive grove whose gnarled wood yielded the substance of her art. Lyra possessed a sculptor's touch, coaxing intricate forms from timber gathered beneath those timeless trees. Her parents, too, were artisans in their own right. Her mother conjured loaves of bread whose aroma was legend, while her father wove baskets of remarkable complexity. Their collective creations found eager buyers at markets scattered through Oak Haven and the neighboring hamlets. Though coin was scarce, their lives lacked nothing essential. Contentment bloomed within the humble walls of their cottage, rooted deep in the quiet rhythms of their village existence. Yet, Lyra harbored a secret, a wonder discovered scarcely a month prior. While seeking the perfect branch of olive wood, destiny had guided her to a hidden cavern, pulsing with unseen energy. Within lay dazzling heaps of treasure, guarded by a formidable djinn. Because Lyra's hands had remained empty of the hoard, the djinn permitted her departure, even manifesting an immaculate piece of olive wood for her craft before she left. Since that day, Lyra had ventured near the cave's threshold several times more. She never again uttered the arcane words to breach its entrance, choosing instead to leave offerings just outside for the guardian within. A sense of the djinn's solitude pricked at her heart, an eternity spent watching over riches, bereft of conversation. Once she left a portion of her mother's ambrosial bread. It vanished with a soft whoosh and a fleeting shimmer upon the earth. Another time, one of her father's masterfully woven baskets met the same ethereal acceptance. On her next visit, bearing a carving fresh from her hands, she discovered a gift awaiting her. A pair of slippers rested near the hidden door. Crafted from rich crimson leather, heavy and supple, they bore exquisite embroidery in threads of pure gold. Their soles, fashioned from the same durable leather, promised protection against the harshest elements, yet possessed an elegance fit for grand celebrations. Lyra slipped them on. Naturally, they fit as if molded to her feet. They were, after all, the work of a djinn. A smile of gratitude touched Lyra's lips as she gazed towards the unseen portal, imagining the djinn observing her from his mystical domain. She murmured her thanks for the splendid slippers, then placed her wooden offering on the ground. Whoosh! A shimmer, gone, like the gifts before it. The subsequent weeks found Lyra and her parents immersed in the bustle of market tours, traversing the nearby villages. The effort, though demanding, proved fruitful. At every stop, her mother would draw the small clay oven from their wagon, its fragrant promise of fresh bread, drawing crowds to their stall. Often, those lured by the scent of baking departed with not just a loaf, but a carving or a basket, sometimes both. Now, finally, they were home, their wagon considerably lighter, their wares mostly sold. Autumn breathed coolly upon the land, signaling the close of the frenetic market season. Lyra welcomed the ensuing tranquility of fall and winter, a time for replenishment, for quiet hours spent carving, rebuilding her stock for the summer yet to come. To begin this cycle anew, she required more olive wood. Dawn broke clear and bright, the sky vast save for a scattering of cotton-puff clouds. Donning her magnificent slippers, Lyra called to her dog, Kale, and together they ambled towards the ancient olive grove. Tucked securely was a gift for the djinn, a small earthenware pot of honey, acquired from a distant market stall. Lyra and Kale navigated the labyrinth of old trees, their trunks twisted like slumbering giants, their leaves dusty ovals of muted green. Silence reigned in the grove, profound and serene, as if they were its sole occupants. Birds hopped near the ground, prospecting for insects, while others perched in the low branches, their songs weaving through the stillness. As they neared the djinn's hidden domain, Lyra sensed an alteration. The cave mouth stood agape, where previously magic words were needed to dissolve the rock face. Now no barrier remained. Hesitantly, Lyra approached the opening, peering into the shadowed recess. Only darkness met her gaze. No sound emanated from within. A knot of concern tightened in her chest. Concern for the djinn. She resolved to enter. Unlike her first visit, when enchanted torches had spontaneously flared to life, illuminating the passage, this time no magical light greeted her, yet sufficient daylight spilled from the entrance to guide her steps down the long tunnel towards the main chamber. The gloom gradually yielded to a soft luminescence as she neared the vast space. Looking up, Lyra discerned a small aperture high in the ceiling, admitting a slender shaft of sunlight. What this light revealed was staggering, an immense cavern, utterly void. Gone were the glittering drifts of golden coins, some broad as her palm. Vanished was the mountain of iridescent jewels, the rich oil paintings, the cool marble sculptures. As Lyra wandered the empty expanse, struck by its stark transformation, Kyle diligently explored the periphery, nose twitching, absorbing the lingering sense of the vanished hoard. Then, investigating a hollow in the cave wall, Kyle encountered something lodged within, He pawed at it, whining softly when it refused to yield. His sounds drew Lyra's attention. Approaching, she noticed a faint metallic gleam deep in the recess. Reaching inside, she wrestled with the object for a moment before pulling free a simple brass lantern. It resembled the lamps her parents used to illuminate their cottage at dusk, but theirs were polished bright. This one was tarnished and dull. Instinctively, Lyra rubbed its side with her sleeve. Abruptly, with a gentle sighing sound, the djinn materialized before her, hovering mid-air. Lyra stumbled backward, landing softly on an unseen cushion that wasn't there a moment before, while Kyle erupted in a volley of barks at the apparition. The djinn loomed as large as she remembered, easily twice the height of a mortal man, clad in voluminous trousers and a long tunic secured by a wide golden belt, floating several feet above the floor. He smiled down at Lyra, whose eyes and mouth formed perfect circles of astonishment. Kale's barking persisted until the djinn glanced his way. With a casual snap of his fingers, a large, meaty bone appeared, tossed towards the dog. Instantly diverted, Kyle settled down to enjoy his unexpected bounty. Relief washed over Lyra at seeing her enigmatic friend unharmed. Yet questions burned within her. Once her initial shock subsided, she implored him for an explanation. The djinn recounted how the thieves, who had long used the cave as their secret repository, grew suspicious that its location had been compromised. As the horde's appointed guardian, the djinn was bound to protect their ill-gotten gains. He had withheld information about Lyra's initial visit, fearing for her safety. However, after the main group of thieves departed, one remained behind, lurking unseen. This watcher observed Lyra leaving her gifts. Confronted, the djinn confessed her visits, but swore she had taken nothing. His word, however, was no longer trusted. The thieves, deeming him unreliable, imprisoned him within the brass lantern and relocated their entire treasure to another clandestine location somewhere within the kingdom of Eldoria. There the djinn remained trapped, powerless, until Lyra's touch released him. Freedom felt strange, the djinn admitted, a vast, uncertain expanse. His obligation to the thieves was severed. His path was now his own to choose. Should he remain in the cave, his home for countless decades, or perhaps embrace the traditional pastime of freed djinn, plaguing mortals with mischievous tricks? Lyra gently discouraged the latter, inquiring if he harbored any dreams untethered to human vexation. Hesitantly, the djinn confessed a long-held yearning to travel, to witness the entirety of the kingdom of Eldoria. Lyra clapped her hands, delight sparking in her eyes. She, too, felt the pull of distant horizons, having known only this small valley, a mere fragment of the sprawling kingdom. Tales she had heard whispered of mountains capped in eternal snow, of fertile pasture lands stretching under vast skies, fields of wheat and barley, and sun-drenched acres of orange trees. And then there was Argentis, the capital, where King Valerius reigned from his mighty stone citadel. Intrigued by Lyra's vibrant descriptions, the djinn proposed she join him on his journey. Alas, Lyra demurred, explaining her parents would worry if she lingered too long. A wide grin spread across the djinn's face. He snapped his fingers. Instantly, a large, intricately patterned carpet materialized on the cave floor, or rather, floated about a foot above it. This enchanted carpet, the djinn explained, could traverse the breadth of Eldoria faster than imagination itself, offering a far more comfortable passage than horseback. They could survey the entire kingdom in a single day. Lyra needed little time to consider. The prospect of seeing her country, of experiencing the wonder she'd only dreamed of, was irresistible. Nodding her assent, she stepped onto the hovering textile, settling cross-legged near the back. She called Kale, who leaped up, curling contentedly in her lap. The djinn floated to the front. As navigator, he commanded the carpet, "Take us to a mountain village." With that simple directive, the carpet glided smoothly through the tunnel, emerged into the daylight, and swiftly ascended. Soon, the trio soared above the treetops, moving with silent speed towards the distant mountain range that had long populated Lyra's fantasies. Initially, a flutter of nervousness accompanied the unfamiliar sensation of flight, but shortly, acclimatized, Lyra began to relish the extraordinary perspective. They soared past the familiar canopy of the ancient olive grove. Below, Oakhaven dwindled, her family's cottage appearing impossibly small from such heights. Within minutes, Oakhaven vanished behind them, replaced by neighboring villages, and then the valley's edge itself. Journeys that would consume days on horseback unfolded in mere moments. As the valley floor gave way to the foothills of Eldoria's great mountains, the carpet climbed, matching the rising terrain. The land below grew rugged and stony, though Lyra could trace a thin ribbon of road carved for terrestrial travelers. Higher they climbed, the air growing crisp and cold. Lyra, lacking winter attire, shivered. Noticing her discomfort, the djinn snapped his fingers. Instantly, she found herself enveloped in a soft, thick woolen coat and matching hat, warmth blooming around her. Gratefully, she thanked him. Soon, patches of white began to fleck the rocks below. Snow, lingering from winters past. Ahead, nestled amongst the peaks, lay a village. As they drew closer, Lyra saw it was even smaller than Oakhaven. Dwellings fashioned from mud bricks huddled together, their outer walls and roofs thickly insulated with stacked bales of grass and straw. This insulation served a dual purpose, Lyra realized, spotting penned goats and sheep contentedly nibbling at the walls of their owners' homes. Tiny stovepipes poked from each roof, releasing steady plumes of smoke, evidence of wood fires warding off the mountain chill within. It seemed the inhabitants were indoors for their midday meal, allowing the djinn to land the carpet discreetly just outside the village perimeter without attracting notice. Another snap of his fingers, and the carpet vanished from sight. Simultaneously, the djinn altered his form. Gone was the towering, ethereal being. In his place stood a middle-aged man of average height, with kind eyes, walking firmly on the ground. He retained his loose trousers and tunic, however, still cinched by the distinctive golden belt. Their purpose here wasn't social interaction. Lyra craved the raw beauty of this place she had only imagined. With Kale trotting faithfully beside them, Lyra and the disguised Jinn walked away from the village, following a path that wound further uphill. They navigated around large boulders, where hardy scrubby plants clung to crevices, their footsteps marking patches of remnant snow alongside other prints: human, goat, sheep, and some Lyra couldn't identify. The Jinn, however, recognized these unfamiliar tracks. "Lion," he murmured. Far from alarmed, Lyra felt a thrill. Protected by the Jinn's presence and having never seen such a creature, she suggested they try to find it. By scanning the ground, they proceeded slowly, following the spoor of the great cat. When the tracks faded on rocky ground, Kyle took the lead, his sensitive nose unerringly guiding them onward. They continued their ascent, eventually reaching a tall, solitary tree. Kyle sniffed intently around its base, then looked up, letting out a sharp bark. There, nestled amongst the branches, sat a magnificent lion. Its tawny coat was smooth and dense, and the tips of its tail and tufted ears several shades darker, its eyes gleaming like molten gold. Clearly shy, the creature desired no interaction with its observers. Lyra hushed Kale, and after absorbing the sight of the beautiful animal, the trio quietly retraced their steps. Walking back, Lyra inhaled the clean, sharp mountain air, a scent utterly new and invigorating. They detoured onto a narrow side path missed earlier in their focus on the lion tracks. It led them to a breathtaking sight. The path opened onto a pool of water so clear it seemed like liquid crystal, encircled by moss-dappled rocks. Feeding this pristine basin was a waterfall, cascading over a high rocky ledge. Mist, born from the water's plunge, caught the sunlight, fracturing it into shimmering, multi-hued gems. Had the air not been so chilly, Lyra would have gladly waded into the inviting water. Instead, she contented herself with admiring its tranquil beauty, warm and dry. Returning to the main path, they climbed to its highest point. Lyra stood speechless, gazing at the panorama unfolding below. In one direction, even taller peaks pierced the sky, their summits permanently mantled in snow. Turning, she could just discern her own valley, a tiny, familiar smudge in the distance. And looking another way lay the rich, fertile country where most of the kingdom's sustenance grew. That was their next destination. Back at their landing spot, the Jinn snapped his fingers. The carpet reappeared. The Jinn resumed his true form. They mounted the floating conveyance, and the Jinn instructed it towards the farmlands. The carpet descended the mountain slopes at a leisurely pace. The landscape shifted with almost dreamlike rapidity, the temperature warming noticeably. Soon, Lyra shed the woolen coat and hat, the mountain chill replaced by milder air. Forests gave way to expansive fields, crops ripening under the sun, awaiting harvest. They drifted over a large, prosperous-looking village before settling near an orange grove. Once more, the Jinn concealed the carpet and adopted his human disguise. Lyra gazed with pleasure at the orderly rows of trees to her left. It wasn't her beloved wild olive grove, but its shaded depths held their own quiet invitation. Across the narrow dirt track to her right stretched a field of corn. Having never witnessed corn growing, Lyra was fascinated by the towering height of the stalks and their dense formation. While the djinn waited by the road, she ventured into the field, squeezing between the stalks for a closer look. She had only taken a few steps when a strange voice offered a greeting. Lyra glanced around, seeing no one. Besides Kyle, the only visible creature was a crow perched atop a bent cornstalk, regarding her with bright, intelligent black eyes. Then, quite distinctly, it repeated, "Hello." Surprise flickered through Lyra, but then she reminded herself she had just descended a mountain on a flying carpet, accompanied by a djinn. A talking crow, in context, seemed less astonishing today than it might have yesterday. She smiled at the bird. "Hello," she replied. Curious, Lyra asked the crow how it came to speak. It confessed uncertainty, explaining it had simply listened intently to the farmers working the fields and eventually began mimicking their words. The farmers, it added ruefully, paid little heed. Lyra, the crow declared, was the first person ever to respond. It mentioned living in the adjacent orange grove, visiting the field daily for corn. Lyra inquired if it would show her its home. With a flap of its glossy wings, the crow launched itself across the path towards the shady trees. Lyra and Kale followed at a walking pace, soon rejoined by the djinn. They found the crow perched on a low branch near the grove's center. A peaceful quiet permeated the grove, dappled sunlight filtering through the leaves, stirred by a gentle breeze. Branches hung low, heavy with ripe fruit, their deep orange hue a vibrant contrast against the lush green foliage. As Lyra absorbed the tranquil scene, a young farmer emerged, pushing a wooden wheelbarrow half laden with harvested oranges. He greeted Lyra and the disguised djinn cheerfully, asking if they required directions. Lyra explained they were merely visitors, admiring the beauty of his grove. Pleased, the farmer welcomed them to explore further, inviting them to pick a few oranges for their journey. Mindful not to impose, Lyra selected only 2, thanking the farmer for his kindness. Peeling the fruit as they strolled leisurely beneath the trees, the group savored the juicy segments one by one. The crow remained their companion, flitting from branch to branch, offering snippets of harmless avian gossip. Eventually, the time came to depart for the capital city. The djinn snapped his fingers, recalling the carpet, and the trio climbed aboard. Waving farewell to the talkative crow, the djinn directed the carpet towards Argentis. Swiftly gaining altitude, the fertile farmland below transformed into a variegated quilt of greens and golds. Soon, this rural tapestry yielded to denser patterns of habitation, signaling their approach to the outskirts of Argentis. The djinn guided the carpet to land within a small copse of trees, near enough to the city gates for convenience, yet sufficiently removed to avoid undue attention. Concealing the carpet and assuming his disguise once more, the 3 travelers proceeded towards the capital on foot. It was market day in Acentis, and the city thrummed with extraordinary energy. Shops and inns overflowed. The wide streets bustled with makeshift stalls and simple wagons vending everything imaginable: fruit, bread, candles, clothing. Smooth cobblestones paved the thoroughfares, and sturdy, well-cut stone formed the facades of the tidy storefronts. Many buildings boasted charming window boxes, spilling forth blossoms that provided vibrant splashes of color against the prevailing gray stone. While the market pulsed with life and interest, Lyra had witnessed many markets before. Her true destination lay elsewhere: the castle. The group navigated the crowded marketplace, ascending the slope towards the residence of King Valerius. The castle, too, was constructed of stone, but of a unique kind, quarried far to the south. This granite possessed a striking green hue, setting the royal edifice distinctly apart from the rest of the city. As they neared the castle gates, an elderly man, walking just ahead of them, caught his foot on a loose cobblestone and stumbled. Lyra rushed forward, helping him regain his balance and offering her arm for support. The man smiled, touched by her spontaneous kindness, but assured her it wasn't necessary. His home was directly before them. He gestured towards the castle, just as several guards emerged, hurrying towards them with evident concern. The old man, it transpired, was none other than King Valerius himself. The king explained to Lyra his habit of taking clandestine afternoon walks amongst his subjects, finding it the best way to gauge the true pulse of his kingdom. Charmed by Lyra and intrigued by her companions, he invited them inside for tea, an offer the group readily accepted. Flanked by solicitous guards, they passed through the grand main entrance into a vast reception hall, the largest room Lyra had ever beheld. Chairs lined the walls. Exquisite hand-woven carpets adorned the green stone floor. And at the far end, raised upon a dais, sat a single imposing throne, also carved from the distinctive green stone. But King Valerius didn't linger there. Turning right, he led them through an unassuming door, down a short corridor, and into a much smaller, more intimate chamber. This room radiated coziness, furnished with comfortable chairs arranged companionably, colorful hangings softening the stone walls, and a gleaming brass tray laden with tea and cakes awaiting them. Dismissing the guards and servants with a gentle wave, the king poured tea for his guests himself, embodying the perfect host. Their conversation flowed easily, touching upon books, art, and the joys of travel. They spoke of their journey, omitting the magical means of transport, allowing the king to assume they had spent months traversing Eldoria on horseback. King Valerius listened with keen interest, impressed by their adventures, and particularly captivated by Lyra's affectionate descriptions of her distant valley and its ancient olive trees, a region so remote, he confessed, he had never had the opportunity to visit. Too soon, a guard discreetly interrupted, reminding the king of an impending meeting. The afternoon was waning, and Lyra felt the pull of home, the longing for her own beloved valley. They expressed their gratitude to the kind king and bid him farewell, escorted back outside by a guard. The trio ambled back through the market towards the city gates. Evening shadows lengthened. Vendors were packing their wares, shoppers dispersing towards homes or nearby inns for their supper. Reaching the small stand of trees where their transport awaited, the djinn snapped his fingers, summoning the carpet once more. They climbed aboard for the final leg of their incredible journey. The djinn directed the carpet back towards Lyra's valley, instructing it to travel at a more leisurely pace this time. As they floated serenely above Argentus, a profound weariness settled over Lyra. She yawned widely, then lay back on the soft carpet, pulling Kyle close. Closing her eyes, she let the gentle, rhythmic motion lull her towards slumber, replaying the day's extraordinary sights and encounters in her mind: the snow-dusted peaks, the talking crow, the generous farmer, the gracious king. It had been a wondrous experience, a tapestry of memories she would treasure forever. Kyle sighed contentedly, snuggling closer, and soon both weary travelers drifted peacefully asleep, borne silently homeward through the twilight sky. A resplendent sun holds dominion over a sky of flawless cerulean, its color deeply echoed by the vast ocean beneath. Light penetrates the water, making it luminesce with an intrinsic blue magic, surfaces shattering into diamond points, where the sun strikes directly. For this moment, the sea's face seems almost placid, the wind having whispered itself into stillness. Waves unfurl with languid grace upon the sands, their arrival and departure a sibilant, calming meter, a soft surge forward, a gentle shush receding. The tide breathes, a hypnotic pulse against the shore. Initially, the cadence seems immutable, each wave a perfect replica of the last, ingress and egress measured and constant. But then a fleeting surge in the breeze lends the incoming water a fleeting boldness, its voice momentarily deeper, its crest slightly higher. The regularity defines the rhythm. Attentive ears discern subtle variations, minute shifts in timbre. The ocean, after all, is a nexus, intrinsically linked to sand, air, and every denizen of its depths. Thus, its seemingly monotonous song is forever poised on the edge of change, susceptible to the merest whim of the wind, a conductor's unseen gesture altering the orchestra's flow. The waves might roughen and roar, only to subside again into quietude, their sonic signature shifting in ways only the native creatures truly perceive. High above this fluid stage, Kalen, a seahawk, carves slow arcs through the air. He is intimately familiar with the ocean's moods, its sounds and motions etched into his instinct. His sharp eyes scan the waves, awaiting the precise instant to plummet towards a flicker of silver. When the water lies calm, revealing life near its skin, he will descend. With vision spanning leagues, Kalen, circling this tranquil, sunlit expanse, anticipates an easy hunt. He seeks sustenance not just for himself, but for the newly hatched lives nestled on a cliffside ledge nearby, watched over by Lyra. She is more than the mother of his brood. She is his counterpart, bound by fidelity rare in the wild, for gulls often forge lifetime pacts. Kalen hopes for fish, perhaps, or the stubborn bounty of clams and mussels. These demand ingenuity. He has mastered the art of dropping their hardened shells from a height onto the unyielding rocks below until they yield their succulent prize. A worthwhile effort for such favored fare. Drifting further along the coast, Kalen's gaze remains locked on the water. Then a stirring below, movement, color, pale and shimmering shapes he instantly recognizes. A sharp, exultant ululation escapes him. Directly beneath his flight path teems an immense congregation of fish. Abundance enough for his family, abundance for the entire colony. His cry acts as a beacon. Moments later, wings beat the air as others converge, drawn by his clamorous announcement. Their own expressive calls join his, weaving a complex tapestry of squawks that echoes along the shore, carried far on the clear, calm air. Though notorious for their boisterous nature, gulls wield sound with purpose. These are intelligent, intensely social creatures. Through a sophisticated repertoire of vocalizations and body language, they maintain the intricate web of colony life. This dialogue begins even before hatching, an unborn chick peeping to solicit parental care, a plea the adults echo in soft, mewling tones, a form of avian baby talk. Courtship calls possess a similar gentleness, starkly contrasting the loud, trumpeting declarations reserved for territorial disputes or expressions of dominance. Humans attempt translation, mapping these sounds onto familiar emotions. This territory is mine, perhaps, or cries of elation. Yet the true nuances, the subtle grammar of their interactions, remain a secret held solely by the birds themselves. This assembled flock now alternates between excited, staccato chatter and long, plaintive cries, anticipating the feast. Soon more will arrive, but this moment belongs to the spotter. Kalen saw them first. He waits, poised, until the fish are starkly visible beneath the surface shimmer, then commits to the descent. He plunges, a feathered dart arrowing towards the water. Down, down, down. Gulls breach the surface, yes, but their dives are fleeting, just long enough to snatch their quarry before bursting back into the boundless air. This brevity is fortunate for the fish navigating slightly deeper currents. Down here, tranquility reigns. Fish drift with unhurried grace, some barely stirring, surrendering to the gentle sway of the water, a slow, rhythmic rocking. Venturing outwards into the sun-drenched shallows, a majestic coral metropolis reveals itself. Sunlight filters through the aqueous medium, dappling the intricate structures with shifting, luminous patterns. Tiny, iridescent gobies flit like living jewels through the vast, golden architecture. Larger fish, cloaked in vibrant hues, glide past with serene, almost cinematic slowness. The reef dwellers wear every shade imaginable, from fiery orange to electric sapphire. As they navigate the coral labyrinth, some move in utter silence, while others emit hushed, almost subliminal noises. Certain fish release bubbles, tiny spheres ascending with soft, popping sighs. Others send delicate ripples through the water with a supple flick of a tail, a faint swish marking their passage. These are quiet sounds, incidental whispers, vastly different from the constant, purposeful clamor of the gulls above. At first glance, each fish seems encased in its own silent world, oblivious. One might glide fin close past another, yet both appear utterly unaware, like commuters on a crowded thoroughfare, intent only on their individual paths, blind to their fellow travelers. But this perceived detachment belies a complex reality. Fish converse through a multitude of channels. Some methods are silent, subtle electrical fields, or the release of chemical signals, pheromones carrying messages through the water. Light and color serve as visual broadcasts, particularly in courtship, where individuals might flash bioluminescence or shift their pigment to brighter or darker shades. For coordinated movement, body language is paramount. Fish instinctively respond to the gestures of their neighbors, enabling the breathtaking synchronicity of vast schools, a strategy for safe travel and efficient foraging. Yet, for most marine life, sound remains the primary medium, traveling even faster underwater than through air. A thriving coral reef, dense with life, resonates with sound as much as it dazzles with color. A fish of brilliant azure, let us call him Cyanus, circles the reef, emitting a low, soft purring. This male seeks a partner, hoping his vibrational call will capture the notice of females nearby. He repeats the sequence of purring pulses, generated by the rapid contraction and vibration of his swim bladder, a low thrumming against the coral backdrop. Other fish create sound by grinding pharyngeal teeth or snapping their jaws shut. Herring possess a peculiar talent, communicating via high-frequency gas emissions, a seemingly unconventional method that nonetheless allows shoals to cohere in the darkness of night. Fish perceive sound differently than terrestrial mammals. Vibrations detected by their inner ears translate into meaning, maiden calls, warnings, territorial claims. A dominant clownfish, for instance, asserts her status with sharp chirps and pops produced by opening and closing her jaw. Certain deep-sea denizens croak in resonant baritone, serenading potential mates possibly kilometers distant. The significance of other sounds remains enigmatic, perhaps the marine equivalents of song, shouts, or communal chants. Their true meaning, a secret guarded by the depths. Scientists strive to decipher this underwater lexicon, cataloging the mysterious sounds of the sea. Plans exist for a comprehensive virtual archive, the Global Library of Underwater Biological Sounds, playfully acronymed GLUBS, to monitor everything from humming fish to squeaking manatees. Perhaps some fish communicate with globs alongside their purrs and croaks. Countless intriguing acoustic signatures surely await discovery in the vast ocean soundscape. Beyond the reef, further from the shore, another conversation unfolds with vibrant energy. Two bottlenose dolphins, Marina and her daughter Coralia, slice through the luminous water, their passage marked by exuberant clicks and whistles. This pair explores together, hunting fish. Like their prey, dolphins employ diverse communication methods. A sharp tail slap or forceful exhalation through a blowhole often signals warning, while perfectly synchronized swimming expresses solidarity. They can convey messages through artfully released bubble clouds and breathtaking aerial leaps, And then there are the sounds. Marina and Coralia maintain a near constant, noisy dialogue, primarily through high-pitched whistles. They can identify each other at considerable distances by sound alone. Every bottlenose dolphin develops a unique signature whistle. A mother like Marina repeats hers frequently during gestation, effectively teaching the melody to her unborn calf. Coralia then spent her first year refining her own distinct call, influenced by the whistles of her pod members. This unique sonic signature becomes her lifelong identifier, used for sharing information and social bonding. As the pair spirals downwards, Marina emits her signature whistle, a long, vibrating squeak that resonates through the water. Coralia responds not with her own call, but with a flawless imitation of her mother's. This affectionate mimicry, rare in the animal kingdom, hints at the profound, unique bonds within dolphin families. The connection between mother and calf is especially deep and enduring. Coralia will remain by Marina's side for several more years, learning the arts of hunting and survival. Even after achieving independence, she will stay within the pod, periodically rejoining her mother for shared swims. For now, however, they are inseparable. They venture deeper, whistling affectionately, their movements a fluid, graceful ballet. Reaching their descent's limit, they turn upwards, seeking the familiar company of their pod near the surface. As mother and calf ascend, their joyful clicks gradually diminish, fading into the immense quiet of the lower depths. It is quiet here, but not entirely silent. A new sound emerges, growing steadily in volume. A profound, melodic moan, the song of a humpback whale. Let him be Orion. This adult male travels in peaceful solitude, his journey accompanied by haunting vocalizations that can extend for 20 minutes or more. It is a low, ethereal threnody, capable of traversing hundreds of miles of water. The sheer beauty of the sound is captivating, amplified by the enduring mystery surrounding its purpose. Scientists remain uncertain why humpback whales sing, or why they construct such lengthy, intricate sonic architectures. The songs often comprise multiple distinct sections, or phrases, varying in frequency and amplitude, repeated cyclically, sometimes for days on end. Humpback whales, it seems, compose and perform complex, evolving melodies on loop, for reasons not immediately apparent. Perhaps they are elaborate mating calls, declarations of territory, or maybe, like humans, they create music for the sheer pleasure of it. Whatever the motivation, the whales sing throughout their lives. These extraordinary compositions change over time. A whale might even incorporate phrases learned from another, unrelated individual, a form of marine cultural exchange, one whale adopting elements of another's harmony. Orion continues his slow, plaintive song as he ascends towards the surface. Even as he rises, the water remains dark. Night has fallen. Silvery moonlight barely penetrates the ocean's skin. The sea is tranquil now, the whale's song the most distinct sound in the vastness. His harmonies swell, reaching a crescendo, and then finally, silence descends. Even his powerful vocal apparatus requires respite. It is time to rest, to breathe the air above. Orion's massive head breaches the waves. He draws a deep, conscious draft of the cool night air through his blowhole. Unlike humans with their autonomic breathing, whales must decide to inhale. Consequently, they nap near the surface, accessible to air, rather than sleeping soundly in the abyss. Sleeping patterns vary. Sperm whales slumber vertically in pods, dozing just below the surface. Orion, weary from his long swim and equally extensive performance, feels drowsiness claim him. Floating at the boundary between water and air, he closes an eye, finally succumbing to rest. Tonight, stillness settles over the ocean. Orion's song has ended. The dolphin pod sleeps near the shallows. The fish rest amidst the moon-washed coral. On the cliff overlooking the coast, Kalen, Lyra, and their chicks huddle together in the nest, lost to slumber. The sole persistent sound is the ocean's own breath, the soothing rhythm of the waves. The tide creeps slowly inward, washing the shore. Water flows over sand, then retreats, in and out, in and out, as if the sea itself draws deep, slow breaths. With each incoming wave, the ocean lulls its marvelous creatures into deeper sleep.